Welcome to Cartoonist Kayfabe. My name is Ed Piskor.
And I'm Tom Scholey, author of Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics, and Fantastic Four Grand Design.
We're taking a look at Marvel Comics number 1, 1939. First appearance of Human Torch by Carl Burgos. First appearance of Submariner by Bill Everett. But first, we invite you guys to like, follow, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit the bell so that we can notify you when new vids are available. Mitigate that kayfabe effect, man. Get in early on the videos that we talk about, and you're going to get first dibs on the cheapest copies available if you could find the comics we're talking about at all online. If you watch these videos to the very end, you're going to push our YouTube content out to a wider audience. It helps us grow the channel, helps us grow the subscriber base, and it makes it possible to continue bringing you these videos day in, day out. Without further ado, let's take a look, man. Got a facsimile copy, the Folio edition.
Folio edition, yeah.
Of Marvel Comics right here, and one of the earliest kind of trade paper, well, it's a hardback, but one of the earliest comic collections that I ever got my hands on, even though it's not a collection, it's just a hardbound version of Marvel Comics number 1. When I discovered comic shops, it was at Century 3 Mall, Bill and Walt's hobby shop. They had a glass case, and they had maybe 3 or 4 trade paperbacks. There was not a trade paperback model back then that was anything significant. So what they had this. They had a collection of Meltdown, the John J. Muth, Kent Williams, Simonson, Havoc Wolverine gimmick. They had the Scorpio, blah, 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 Nick Fury, Howard Chaykin comic. They had a trade paperback of like 4 or 5 issues of G.I. Joe Special Missions. They had this thing. And it's when you discover the comic shop that you then begin your comics history education.
Yeah, you get a broader understanding of like what's come before, beyond just this current moment.
Exactly. Like you hit the grocery store, it's just du jour, man. These are the comics of the day, and you can't build a good sort of back knowledge with Stan Lee's soapbox. Ain't gonna happen. So when I saw this, it's so evocative, and the idea that it's Marvel Comics 1.
It's the first Marvel comic. I mean, you can't state that enough.
I had to, I saved up money. I think this cost $18. Yeah, it cost $18, which is a lot of money, man. Like, I could have bought 20 comics, or I'm gonna get one hardcover Marvel comic. And it does have some forward matter. It's reasonably well designed. What's interesting is this is a Bill Everett piece of art. Copyright Steranko, because it's in that Steranko book, and that doesn't make sense to me. I guess Steranko paid him to draw it, but Bill Everett drawing, he just got sharper and sharper as time went on.
Yeah, love his late stuff.
We get, me too. We're going to do vids on that stuff at some point. Introduction by Les Daniels, the guy who did the Marvel Abrams history book, 50th anniversary of Marvel. Just kind of like laying things out the way that he, with all the vast research he did for that book.
Yeah, there's like a book we've never seen. He had, the Marvels was supposed to be way more ambitious that he had written, but it didn't adhere to the company line.
It became a propaganda piece. Like the final printed version is a propaganda piece. So like this is a propaganda piece, and there is also like the Roy Thomas bits where he does like an intro piece for the Torch. He does an intro piece for Submariner. And it's also towing that company line. There is mention of Carl Burgos going off, creating his own Captain Marvel, saying it's not his best hour. Not stating that the reason that he did that was because he was fucking pissed off that Marvel re-upped the copyright on Human Torch by having Johnny Storm show or fighting the android original Human Torch, destroying him, thus renewing the copyright for Marvel's purposes. He ran off. None of that is in here. Like this is, we learned that stuff later, but there's at least mention of it. And of course, the color and the final treatment. Is this an issue 1 in your copy?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll take a look. We're going to use your copy.
Let me just double check. Maybe it's not.
Yeah.
No. Okay. Yeah. There's something else in there. So that's not. Yeah. That's not in that.
Okay. So it's like those like Marvel Masterworks where you get that like hyper. Saturated color.
Well, if you look at the
pure
cover,
black lines.
There's pieces of drawing that are drawing in the color that just don't exist. See all the lines in like the melting, and the little extra stuff. That's gone.
So we are not going to use my version. It's so blown out and just everything that we hate about.
Yeah, I mean all the times I've seen these stories were in these kinds of reprints, and my walk away was, gee, didn't Marvel Comics used to suck?
Right.
You know? But then when you see, you know, a more faithful reproduction, it's a different story.
So we're going to come back to this because of, like, look at the treatment here.
Yes, you're right.
Cart before the horse.
Yeah.
We'll get there, man. Let's take a look.
So yeah, the first Marvel comic ever. And,
Yes.
And so much of the DNA of Marvel Comics is in here. It's largely anti-heroes.
Yes. Cover, you know, Martin Goodman, publisher of pulp magazines, commissions one of the pulp painters to do a pen and ink piece, and I would imagine that guy also did the color steps.
Okay.
Here, this is not Burgos. This is not Will Everett.
It's not Schomburg.
No,
doing this
absolutely
one.
not.
Okay.
Schomburg comes later. So it's one of the guys that was just painting those random Goodman pulps, and it is fun to see what those, like, when you look at those pulps, it's painted, there's a lushness to it, but when you break it down, like, it's kind of cartooning.
Yeah.
So it's fun to see what those painters do with black ink.
Yeah.
And drawing. Potentially didn't have any kind of model for what Human Torch looks like, comes up with his own version. But here we go.
And then, a very different Human Torch on the inside.
That really looks Basil Wolverton, but I do not think he was there that early.
Yeah, I mean, he was at Marvel pretty early, but yeah, probably not. And these comics are outsourced.
Yes.
Marvel at this time doesn't have a comics department.
Absolutely.
So they hire these guys, which is, you know, why, like, the copyright stuff is so egregious in these particular cases.
Yeah, for sure. Burgos, Everett, and one other guy, they were part of a shop, you know, and you create the comics ad hoc, and you take them to a publisher who has nothing but a desk and the ability to write a check.
Yeah.
And you know, you deliver the comic. They put the copyright in their name, the publisher. That's what he's buying, and wash, rinse, repeat.
So he builds this robot, you know, this kind of Frankenstein, Dr. Frankenstein kind of thing. He builds this robot, and because of the materials the robot's made out of, he bursts into flames immediately. So I'm thinking of, like, you know, the 30s and so, you know. They're thinking of, like, celluloid and stuff, or
silver halide film.
Yeah.
Is the stuff that, you know, you put that in your attic for a number of years, and as it decays and oxidizes, it becomes highly flammable.
Yeah, acetate, all that stuff. It's like the distrust for these new materials. They're going to burst into flames, and so that's what happens to this synthetic man that he creates.
Yes, it's all plot device. So the Human Torch, he escapes his dwellings underneath the they encased in cement or whatever.
Encased in cement, in case they ever need him, they can bust. But they're probably not going to need him. But they'll leave him there so he doesn't cause harm. And immediately after he gets out, he causes mayhem, partially unknowingly, like a Frankenstein's monster, partially, you know, a little bit of a mischievous spirit. But yeah, he's not Superman. You know, he's an anti-hero. You know, part of the Marvel, you know, sauce.
We're coming up with the language of comics, so we don't know what we don't know, and there are no rules yet. So this comic reads this way and then that way. But there's a directional device that it feels right.
Works, yeah.
It feels right. And this, I like to think, like, he looks animated here, but the way they treat it is like, once they discover that he's down there, he's like sleeping or something. And they just have to go down and collect him and put him in his, like, little glass tube. But of course, the pool that he jumps into is the property of a racketeer guy who's going to use the Human Torch as part of his fire insurance scheme.
Yeah. Yeah, we're still in, like, pulp land and, you know, crime stories.
Exactly.
And yeah, everywhere he goes, it's you know, he causes, like, all this horror and destruction. It's
starting as the pages go by, like, slowly codifying what the torch looks like. You know, he does it in a matter of a dozen pages. Very cool.
This read was super fun. Like, I've had access to this story in various other forms, but I was never able to sit down and read. Like, I just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Until I got this version. So readable, so much fun in this format.
It really is.
It sings.
And the strengths of Burgos and Everett sing on the page, because the other stories, you could see where those kind of guys, Paul Gustafson and these unknown dudes, it's kind of like just whatever.
Yeah. Superman could stop a bullet, but I don't remember ever seeing a panel in a Superman comic before this where, like, the bullet just kind of, like, you know, stops in his forehead.
Right.
You do see that in movies, in the Superman movies.
Ultimately, the android Human Torch has to sort of answer for his crimes.
And then he kind of finds out that his creator was also had some, nefarious scheme to use him in, and
just a money making scheme.
Yeah.
We're gonna take you on tour, like you do the Carney circuit, and he's like, you know what, fuck that too.
He's fuck you, I'm out of here. And you think about like Fantastic Four #1 and the first couple Fantastic. That's the Torch would be constantly doing like fuck this, I'm out of here.
It's a great ending.
Yeah, it is interesting. How much of this stuff is there from the very beginning.
It's all racketeers and stuff, all spies and saboteurs and shit in these old comics.
This Angel story, was this in yours?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Because this Angel story is interesting too. Like, he's kind of an interesting figure because they're like, okay, we got this crime wave going on in the city. Let's hire the Angel. And it's like, we don't even need to hire him because he's already started bumping off, one guy at a time.
He's throwing a rock in a window with like the list of the bad guys. Like, oh, dude, I'm already on that shit.
With his symbol.
Yeah. Don't even trip. I'm on it. And still, it's even more rooted in New York. It's like the 6 big men or something like that. When New York was like the 5 families.
5 families.
Yeah, super fascinating. And he is in the spirit. Martin Goodman was a knockoff guy. So in the spirit of the established heroes of, I guess,
like the Shadow, maybe,
Shadow,
or something? Yeah.
The Spider, Phantom existed in comic strips.
This guy looks like Barzini.
Your daughter's wedding purse. And our guy's like a Clark Gable, just nothing heroic about this fella.
Yeah, but he's incredibly savage and lethal. Like I feel bad for the gangsters in this story. He is like, he just is killing these guys nonstop. Again, kind of anti-hero kind of stuff, hard-edged stuff that we associate with Marvel.
I can imagine the frustration of trying to just earn a buck legitimately, and you see these guys with the kind of the balls to do some black market stuff, and just the frustration, like, I want to fucking kill it. Just wish he wasn't there. Look at the weird color choices on this stuff.
Like, this is the hero. Like, this guy, like,
choking dudes out, tossing them off of roofs.
Hello, Carlo.
Yeah, mad off register.
Yeah, again, part of the fun. And you would hear those stories of like old time guys talking about, you don't understand just how off register comics were in the beginning, and it's like, now I'm seeing it. But again, it's like it works. Like, this is the way to read it.
Yeah,
it feels pulpy, it feels dangerous,
exactly.
It's scary and
bootleg.
fast. Yeah, bootleg. Yeah, which Marvel kind of was. It kind of was like the bootleg comic if you look at the history.
Absolutely.
And there's danger there.
So now we're at the Submariner story. And the cool thing about the Mariner story, well, I guess like a little history stuff, the Submariner strip was done before Marvel Comics was a thing. It was going to be a part of Motion Picture Funnies. The idea was that it was going to be distributed for free at movie theaters. But
and there was going to be a movie to go with it too. They were going to make like a Submariner movie.
That's crazy. I didn't even realize that part. So he just was sitting on this strip. And the strength of this art, he's using duotone. That's what we're seeing, and why it's so dark and all of that. It did not lend well to. There's a lot of duotones that you can buy with different sort of distances between the shading lines, and his just did not reproduce well on this pulpy newsprint whatsoever. You can find, like, on Heritage auctions, there were a couple of pages that have sold. It looks nothing like the reprints that we see, because you see how dark it is. That's the darkest value of the duotone. And every reprint that was done since just really shits on.
Yeah, it looks like, this looks like a printing error.
Yeah.
This whole thing. Like the other one, it looks a little dark. It's a little dark for my taste. Still very appropriate, very great. Whereas the other one is just like, it needs to go in the trash.
Right. Cartoonist Kayfabe is brought to you by the comic books that we make. In stores now. Tom Scioli has Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics. Complete biography about the man behind the Marvel Universe in one handy bound volume. 300 pages worth of material there. Fantastic Four Grand Design is still on stands. That is Tom's version of the complete Fantastic Four story in one handy volume. On the racks right now is Red Room Trigger Warnings, 4 issues of that on your local comic shop racks at this very moment. But the Trigger Warnings trade paperback is coming out September 2022, and Jimmy has Hulk Grand Design, Monster, and Madness are in your comic shops today. The single issues, 40 pages apiece, telling the complete story of the Incredible Hulk. And around Christmas time comes the Treasury edition of Hulk Grand Design with fluorescent ink on that cover. So that thing is going to stand out a mile away. Now that we're done paying the bills, please support our comics. Let's get back to the video.
But it is like, it's a moody story, it's a noir story, and it's underwater too. So the fact, like, being murky is a plus. This, like, doesn't this look like it's just like an error? On,
Yeah,
like
totally.
Something that your TV would do.
Yeah, it looks like that one X-Force issue.
Yes,
But-
right. The values are wrong. But you see, it is, okay, there is a purple here, there's a purple here.
I would bet you they had to do massive cleanup.
Right.
Like,
Oh, yeah.
to even see what this is, like, compared to this, you know, like, there's massive cleanup done, and I just wonder if there was, like, lots of redrawing.
I mean, that's what would happen in like the Masterworks and stuff. Sometimes, you know, like an intern or somebody is sitting down doing some drawing.
Right. But ultimately, on the pages, like, outside of the water, where duotone is still used, it becomes a pure black on almost every
Yeah,
other
you lose
Marvel
all that
reprint.
detail of like the waves and things.
Yeah.
Again, like the folio, you know, it's like I'm seeing these things with new eyes.
Right.
You know.
Like, I mean, it's drastic, the difference. But I mean, it's so, like,
It's a different aesthetic, and
Yeah.
it's a really cool aesthetic, and it's like, you know, it's really interesting and cool. Where the other stuff is just junk. Like this is junk. There's no reason to look at that or read that. You know?
right.
Like I really haven't engaged with this work, you know, in any real serious way prior to this. Just because, you know, how do you sit down and read that?
Right. And you see, like, I seen photographs of in issue 1, and, you know, it had the warmth of these stevedores, like the warmth of these stevedores would be captured really, really well. But this is where it becomes, to use a Gen Z phrase, problematic, where this is clearly duotone, but they just, it's like they quit doing the redrawing, and we're just like, let's make it all black. So it really does a major disservice to Bill Everett's drawing, because he's using subtle lines, and this is where you want to take a look at the Heritage Auctions original art, because he's using a very sensitive line and using lots of duotone, maybe, you know, in the vein of like Roy Crane.
Well, I mean, talk about like learning, you know, the vocabulary of comics. Like, it's learning, like, oh wait, I can do all this like cool stuff that looks great on the board. When it prints, it turns into something else.
Right. Yeah. But here you go, man. Like, just totally showing up super, super dark.
Yeah, again, like I had so much fun reading this story in particular, and it is like just the atmosphere there. It's, you know, it's like
this is the page that's on Heritage, and
probably the clearest page so far.
And you see that there's all this. There's like a thin line, and it is just black. It is just black, and this is pure. This is duotone with white cut in there to give you the speed. But you just don't get any of that in these like Marvel reprints. Okay, so just breezing through here, man.
Raider.
This is Martin Goodman,
Cowboy
a
shit.
knockoff guy. We got cowboy stuff. We had our Spider Shadow type guy with Angel.
A jungle adventure story.
Yes. And a lot of these guys
Alex Raymond.
are lost to the ages. Like their names are long forgotten. Still maintaining that comic strip 4-tier thing. Got to give bang for the buck.
That cowboy story reminds me of Fletcher Hanks.
Sure,
early
yeah.
Fletcher Hanks. I wonder if it is him, but. And then ka-zar, who was already a pulp character, but this is, you know, him coming into Marvel Comics.
Yes, and the motif of the way this is laid out is sort of arranged like the Hal Foster Tarzan comics with very florid captioning all over the place.
Yeah, the captioning on the bottom in a lot of cases.
With volumes of text. I bet you if we had, the complete Tarzan by Hal Foster,
could put stuff side by side.
We might be able to pull a couple like
that face.
Yeah, like that's pulled from something.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this is like that era, right? Like I feel like I've seen a lot of
like this one here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is a Hal Foster piece, and you just see it repeated.
Still fun, still a fun read.
Yes.
The Human Torch and the Submariner stories are the standouts, but
this is the bronze medal story, I would say, the ka-zar piece.
Yeah.
And I guess no accident that the character comes around again.
Yeah, he has some legs
in the 60s. Such a cool thing with this folio edition. Is this what you buy, or is there some bigger book or
no?
A
you buy paper? It's the Marvel Golden Age,
okay.
Which is like this massive, thick book collecting a bunch of Human Torch stories and stuff. And then this is like your little bonus. But this is like my favorite part of those collections.
Super fun, man. There it is, Marvel Comics #1 in the folio edition, where you get to see photograph from original pages rather than like the Marvel Masterworks super saturated.
Going through some kind of weird filtration system of interns,
Right. Pleasure to look at, man. Tom, let the people know what you have out on the stands.
Check out Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics, fantastic 4-grand design, American Barbarian, and go to my Patreon to see different comics I've created at patreon.com, search Tom Scholey, and I have a YouTube channel called Total Recall Show.
Red Room Trigger Warnings. Trade paperback hitting the stands September 2022. Murder on the Dark Web for Fun and Profit is the name of the game in Red Room Comics. Go to your local comic shop, ask for it, get it pulled. Man, we have to know how many of these things put out into the universe. If your shop banned the comics, or if your country banned the comics, there's still a way to get it, man. Go to my link tree in the description below this video. Put in your orders and pre-orders for current and future Red Room comics. Hit up my Patreon today, $3 for the archive there. Almost 300 pages worth of material is up there live. I'm serializing new strips that have yet to see a paper edition. They won't see print for at least 6 to 9 months. But you could read them today on the Patreon. We have a Cartoonist Kayfabe spread shop where we are selling shirts, hats, bags, fanny packs, all sorts of stuff, and you could help support the channel that way. Jimmy's not here today, Tom. Please give the marching orders so that we can be on our way.
Read more comics.